opportunities in the San Francisco real estate landscape. I'm Carlene, your host and moderator for this event. As the customer experience manager, I'm dedicated to ensuring your journey through today's discussion is not only informative, but also engaging and enjoyable. Throughout this webinar, we'll unravel the complexities of the latest laws impacting landlords, explore the nuances of fair housing practices, and provide practical insights into mastering property maintenance in the vibrant San Francisco market. Whether you're a seasoned property owner or just starting your real estate journey, this session is designed to equip you with knowledge you need to thrive in the world of property management. So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers for this afternoon. Our first speaker, who is Lawrence Leong. Lawrence Leong is our co-founder and director of operations. He is a licensed realtor, over 30 years of real estate experience, including property management, investment strategies, buyer and seller representation. Our second speaker is Kristine Cordenilio. She's our operations manager. 7+ years of experience in property management, anthropologist, researcher by profession, fluent in English and Filipino, and foundational understanding of Spanish. And our third speaker for the day, it's George Villaluz. He is our maintenance manager. He has 8+ years in customer service and property management, 4+ years in maintenance management, bilingual in English and Tagalog. And our fourth speaker, Nathan Malley, he is our leasing manager and sales consultant. He is a seasoned realtor, 8+ years in client services, experienced in sales, property management, and investments, bilingual in both English and Thai. And not least, it's Anna Palileo. She's our business development manager. She is a homeowner, rental owner in multiple properties, business owner of multiple businesses, 10+ years in client services, bilingual in both English and Cantonese. Just a few reminder before we proceed to our topic. We value your questions and insights, so please utilize our Q&A section to share your queries during the discussion. Our team will address them promptly after the main presentation. So now let's dive into our scheduled topics and explore the wealth of knowledge and speakers have to offer. So for today, I'd like to refer this question to our first presenter, Lawrence. So Lawrence, let's talk about Costa Hawkins. There has been a lot of a buzz in the news about Costa Hawkins. What is it, and how does it impact my rental property?
Well, you're absolutely right, Carlene. There is a lot of buzz in the news about Costa Hawkins, and the reason for that is because there have been in the past attempts to overthrow Costa Hawkins. And the most recent attempt is going to be this year in the November ballot. So, but to get to your question, to answer your question, Costa Hawkins really is a law. It's a state law that was passed back in 1995 and was passed by the voters in California. And what it did was it provided a lot of foundational rights for property owners that didn't exist before. It hands down, it's probably the best law that's out there for people that own property and are landlords. Now, obviously, you might be a property owner and you don't rent your property, and you might think it might not apply to you, but you never know if your property is ever going to be rented in the future, or if any future people that might end up buying your property may be interested in becoming a landlord. Now, we said that it's rights for landlords and property owners, right? What does that really mean? Well, it means that the law governs things around rent regulation, around de-vacancy control, and also around things such as exemptions from rent control. And if you look at a place like San Francisco that has by far some of the most stringent rental ordinances and controls in the country, maybe outside of New York. Or you can even look to something closer like Berkeley, Alameda, or even down south to San Mateo. Santa Monica, down in Southern California. All these places have pretty strong rental ordinances. And you could just imagine if Costa Hawkins wasn't around, the rental ordinances could be vastly more restrictive.
Okay, so does that mean that it applies to my property or the rental properties of our guests?
So what I was alluding to earlier is that it applies to every single type of property out there. But obviously, if you're a landlord, it applies more to you. From a regular homeowner perspective, it applies for the future value of your home, right? At the end of the day, Costa Hawkins will apply to pretty much every single type of property. There are exemptions as defined in Costa Hawkins, and you can look at things that are newly built after about 1995, which is when the law was passed. And for anything that was newly built, it wouldn't really apply anymore. There are some exemptions in Costa Hawkins that you guys may be familiar with that kind of trickle down into local rental ordinances where you have exemptions from rent control. And those include like single family homes, condos, and certain types of properties and when they were constructed, as I just mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. And is there like any form of alternative for Costa Hawkins?
So if you think about it, as a landlord, when you talk about the different properties and what it means to be able to raise rent, if you look at a property that you may have, or maybe you know somebody that has a property, what do you think the first thing is if they find out that the person that's renting it is going to move out?
Got it. Okay. So
What do you think would happen?
mhm. Well,
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
again, what was can you repeat that again for me?
Oh
Sorry.
no, I was just saying for somebody that owns property, right? If you have somebody that owns property and renting it out, or they know somebody renting it out, what's the first thing that they think about if they find out that their tenant's going to be moving out?
Well, for me, if I'm going to be the landlord, it would be the expense, right? Because they're moving out, so it would be a loss for me. I will have to wait probably for another several months to get it rented. That is just
Yeah,
how I understand it.
absolutely. And obviously, the expense that you're referring to is lost income, right? So for a lot of
Correct.
people, what they're really thinking about is they're thinking about how much am I going to be able to rent my property for, right?
Exactly.
Like maybe
Exactly.
they were renting it for something a little bit lower, but now they're moving out. I can rent it for a lot higher. How much is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath renting for? I could probably raise my rent really high, right? But the
Exactly.
reality is, um, if Costa Hawkins wasn't around, you might not be able to have the option to raise the rent all the way to market rate. What they call that is de-vacancy control, meaning
Mm,
that when Costa Hawkins provides the right for property owners to raise the rent up to market rate when somebody moves out. That's part
mhm.
of it. But if Costa Hawkins wasn't around, which is what I was trying to mention earlier or allude to earlier, what could happen? Well, what could happen is places like San Francisco and a very progressive board of supervisors may impose even more strict rent
Mhm.
control. They might impose what they call vacancy control, right? And vacancy control is the opposite of de-vacancy control, in that if you have somebody move out, like say you have a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, like I mentioned earlier, and somebody's paying $2,000 a month, which is well below um, normal market rate rent. When they move out, maybe what happens is you can't raise the rent. You have to keep it at $2,000 for the next person that moves in. That's what they
Mhm.
call vacancy control, right? That's a scary thought, right? Because once you have your rent stuck at a very low rate like that, that impacts directly the valuation of your property. The best example that we really have vacancy control is in New York, where they ended up passing it. And overnight, billions of dollars of value of real estate disappeared. It just vanished because people aren't going to be willing to pay more for a property if they know that the rents are stuck and they're stuck forever based on the vacancy control, right? So Costa Hawkins ends up being a very, very good law when it comes to rental owners, especially landlords, because it provides you the rights to raise the rent when it becomes vacant. It provides you exemptions on certain types of properties. If all that disappears, then Costa Hawkins doesn't protect landlords from local cities and jurisdictions from imposing more strict rent control. And so what I would recommend is as we get towards November and we have a ballot on the election, or sorry, a proposition on the ballot for this coming election, that you vote in favor of not repealing Costa Hawkins. Because if you allow that to happen, then you're really taking a big risk that may end up impacting the value of your home in the future. So
Got it.
be
All
careful.
right, so got it. Thank you, Lawrence, for the information. So basically, Costa Hawkins is like protecting the landlords. Like they can raise their rent for if the property becomes vacant, right? If I
Yeah.
understand that correctly, Lawrence.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's absolutely correct. So upon it's what they call being able to reset your rent upon vacancy. So when you're, whether it be somebody moving out of the property and is fully vacant, and you can raise the rent to market rate rent, or if you have like a roommate situation in property and the last person on that original lease leaves the property, doesn't mean the property is vacant. Maybe there's other people that have moved in, but as long as you never create an implied tenancy, then if that last person on that original lease leaves, then you could raise it up to market rate rent through Costa Hawkins.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that information, Lawrence. Now I have this idea of what Costa Hawkins is all about, protecting the landlords, basically. So again, Lawrence, thank you so much for your time and for sharing that information with us. Now I'd like to ask our second presenter, which is Kristine, our operations manager. All right. Hi, Kristine. Thank you so much for your time for today. And my question, Kristine, is basically, what is the rental housing inventory?
So the rental housing inventory is part of the significant changes Ordinance number 265-20 brought forth. So effective on January 18, 2021, this ordinance necessitates that residential property owners report specific information to the rent board to obtain a license. And this licensing is now a prerequisite for applying certain types of rent increases.
Oh, so basically, how does that affect, us landlords?
It's simple. To enact annual rent hikes, even within the bounds of rent control, or to avoid rent gouging accusations on non-rent controlled properties, we must have a valid rent increase license. And staying current with this license is crucial because failing to do so could lead to what's considered illegal rent increases, and this compels landlord to reimburse any increments that were previously charged. So in the end, we need to stay diligent, ensure your licenses are always in order. It's not just good practice, it's the law.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Kristine. So what are the essential rules and notes about security deposits in San Francisco?
Well, there's a number of points to remember in relation to the security deposit regulations per California state law. So remember, these rules fall outside the rent board scope. Landlords are permitted to charge up to 2 months rent for unfurnished properties and 3 months for furnished units. And this includes any deposit labeled as last month's rent, pet deposit, or other types of deposit. And it's crucial to note that all deposits are refundable. Landlords have a 21-day window to return the deposit after a tenant vacates. And regarding the interest on deposits, San Francisco law mandates yearly interest on deposits held over a year for all residential rentals, except those with government subsidized rent. And the due date for this interest is annually on the anniversary of the receipt of the deposit.
Mm.
So, for example, the interest rate for March 1st, 2024 through February 28th, 2025 is 5.2%. And the interest rate for the preceding year from March 1st, 2023 through February 29th, 2024 was 2.3%.
Okay. So now can you also give us the process if the residence gives a move out notice?
So when a tenant plans to move out, state law requires us as landlords to offer a pre-move out inspection 2 weeks prior to outline possible security deposit deductions. And this inspection is optional unless requested by the resident. We must give a 48-hour notice before the inspection, which the resident can waive in writing. And after the inspection, we provide an itemized statement detailing possible charges for repairs or cleaning. And in the absence of the resident during the inspection, these statements should be left inside the premises, and it must include statutory language about the resident's rights and allow residents to address the identified issue. And then please note that deductions from the deposit can include unpaid rent, bills, cleaning, and any damage exceeding normal wear and tear. However, the law does not define normal wear and tear, and neither can the rent board. If neither can the rent board. So if the deductions exceed $125, we are required to provide receipts or invoices.
Okay. So Kristine, following through your to this discussion regarding the wear and tear, as a like in property management company, is there like a specific like item, something like that, in the lease or addendum that would classify what is it wear and tear? So I'm just curious to know about that actually.
I think it's more of a question for our maintenance supervisor, George. But basically, what we outline when we look at the security deposit disposition is, for example, in terms of painting, we do not charge the resident touch-up painting or property repainting as a whole if they have stayed at the property for 3 years and above. So if they stayed for the property for a year and then there is detrimental damages to the painting or there needs to be touch-ups because there were holes in the wall due to, decorations, interior designs and something stuff like that, then they would be charged for the remaining 24 months. Because the period that we allot for the painting to last is 3 years.
Got it. Okay. And speaking of which, basically, if I understand it correctly, tenants will have to provide notice to the landlords if they are going to vacate the property, right? Okay. And is it like a specific like deadline, for example, 30 days or 60 days that they have to provide a notice? Or is it like it depends on the property management company that they will outline a specific number of days upon moving out?
Well, everything is actually stipulated on their lease. So if, for example, they are moving out, for example, February 1st, they must give out a 60-day notice if it's a 12-month or 24 months lease. However, if it's a month-to-month lease, then they are only required to give us a 30-day notice to vacate the property.
I see. So month to month, is it like a standard law that a month to month is 30 days only for, for providing a notice that a person or a tenant will move out?
because a month-to-month lease renews every 30 days.
Oh,
So
okay.
if
I
a
see.
tenant vacates, they must give out at least 30-day notice to vacate. However, an annual or a 24 months lease renews after it expires, then
Mhm.
they should at least give us more time, because this also protects our landlords, because we need to, especially our leasing team, they need to prepare,
Mm, right.
to
True. True.
advertise or to market the property again.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for addressing that, Christine. So, another question that I have is, what happens now? This is for the landlord. So, what happens if the landlord misses the 21-day deadline?
You would not like to do that, because if landlords fail to meet the 21-day deadline for deductions, we lose the right to withhold any of the deposits. And moreover, if the landlord is found to be keeping the security deposit in bad faith, landlords could face lawsuits for up to 2 to 3 times the security deposit amount. And
Mm,
tenants can also pursue legal actions for various other concerns like breach of contract, nuisance, trespass, retaliation, fraud, unfair business practices. I can go on and on with the small claims court, and then the limit or the maximum limit is up to $10,000 per individual.
wow. That is a very big amount there. All right. Thank you, Christine. So, now, aside from the existing security deposit rules, what does the new security deposit law stipulates?
So I'd just like to quickly give information about the new AB 12 law signed by Governor Newsom. And this law actually set a uniform security deposit limit at 1 month's rent for all rental units, whether furnished or unfurnished, across California. And this is a departure from the previously tiered system that I mentioned earlier. So, but for small landlord communities, those that are owning two properties
Mm,
with no more than 4 units in total,
mhm,
there's an important caveat, and you can still collect up to 2 months rent for a security deposit unless you're leasing to a military members.
mm.
So be aware that this law takes effect on July 1st, 2024, and we still have time. And the California Apartment Association will provide guidance and updated resources to help us comply with this.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Christine. We've really
Thank you.
enjoyed that information. So there's so many things that we need to consider if we're going to be like a landlord, whether it's a small landlord or property management. So thank you. Thanks again, Christine. Now let's go with our third speaker for the day, our maintenance supervisor, George Villaluz. Hello, George.
Hey, Colleen. Good afternoon.
Right. So, I'd like to ask you this question, George. Basically, these will be like for the legal duties of our landlords. Can you tell us more about it? Like, what are the legal duties of the landlords?
Yeah, of course. Legal duties of the landlords will also, of course, vary depending on the lease agreement, but we still need to fulfill several key duties in order to effectively manage the property, and of
Mhm,
course, for us to maintain a positive landlord and tenant relationship. Now, one of these are, of course, providing a habitable condition.
mhm,
Uh, we are required to make sure that our rental property or the property is fit for habitation, which actually includes on ensuring that the property is safe, it's also
mhm,
clean, and in good repair, having electricity, plumbing, and heating.
mhm.
Landlords are also responsible for repairing any damages or defects in the rental property that are not caused by the tenants. And this can include, of course, fishing issues with the plumbing, heating, electrical system, and other structural problems.
Okay. All right. But how about the common areas, George?
Yes, these are actually included. Common areas such as hallways, staircases, gardens, backyards. Landlords are generally responsible for the maintenance and repairs. This area should not be blocked and should always be clean.
Mhm,
But we also need to make sure that there are no structural issues, especially the fire exit. And speaking of fire exit, this actually where the compliance goes in. We need to make sure that
mhm,
the rental property complies with the local building codes and safety regulation. This can include maintaining safety or fire safety measures, proper ventilation and other necessities or other necessary requirements.
Okay, all right. Now, since we're talking about compliance, what are the compliance that needs to be done in the property?
Yeah. Well, I can give actually or enumerate some of the compliance. One of these are actually done annually, which is a boiler inspection. And annual boiler testing is important because it helps ensure that the boiler system is safe, self-sufficient, and regular testing can identify any faults and issues with the boiler before they become a major problem. Now, the thing about the boiler or getting a certificate for an annual boiler inspection, our vendors are actually requiring to do a backflow testing, which is another compliance that we need to work on. A backflow testing is a process in where we are testing and evaluating the backflow prevention devices installed by the plumbing system. And this is to make sure that everything is functioning properly.
Okay. Now, since we talk about backflow, I'm not really familiar with this, so I'm curious to hear more about it. So, can you tell us more about what backflow is all about?
Yeah, of course. Backflow actually occurs when the flow of water in the plumbing system reverses. This is
Mhm.
allowing potentially contaminated water to flow back into clean water supply. This can happen due to changes in water pressure or other factors as well. Now, backflow testing is typically required by local water authorities or municipalities. This is to make sure that the safety of the public, or this is to make sure that it's safe for us to drink the water. It is
Mhm.
also important to prevent backflow because this can lead to cross-contamination or
Mhm.
contamination such as chemicals, bacteria, and other hazardous substances entering the drinking water supply.
Okay. All right. Now, okay. Thank you for that information, George. So,
Yeah.
now, should we, in regards to the compliance as well,
Yeah.
you
Uh,
mentioned earlier about uh safetiness, right? So
yes.
I think we tackle more about fire extinguishers, or the safety part of in the property.
Yeah. Thank you, Colleen. Yes, those are also part of the compliances
Mhm.
that needs to be done annually. The fire extinguisher, the fire panels, and the smoke detectors. Actually, both of this goes hand in hand because this is our way for us to identifying if there's any fire in the either it's a single unit or a residential home or a building. We'll discuss more about fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher can be we can revalidate that or we can get a certificate for that annually to a professional. This is important because a fire extinguisher is what we use so that we can suppress or extinguish small fires or
Mhm.
prevent them from spreading, and of course potentially saving properties. Now, while fire extinguishers are important safety measure, it is
Mhm.
very crucial for us residents and the landlords, of course, to inform our local residents. They need to remember they do have limitation. They should only be used by individuals who have been trained in proper use and who assess that they can safely and effectively combat fire. And of course, in case of
Mhm.
larger fires or situations in where the fire is already out of control, it's important for us to evacuate the area and call for emergency services. Now, this is where the fire panel is actually going to come in. The
Mhm.
fire panel basically this ensures that the fire alarm system is functioning properly and can effectively detect, notify, or manage fire incidents, of course, minimizing the risk of injury. Just
Mhm.
imagine this. There is a fire going on the first floor of your building, and you have like, let's say, 9 units in your building.
Mhm.
So instead of actually going door to door, knocking, letting them know that you have or there is a fire going on, the
Mhm.
fire panel is actually going to be activated and it's going to produce a sound that would alert all of the residents.
Mhm.
Yeah. And also for aside from this, we have the smoke detectors. This plays the crucial role, I mean, in home fire safety, especially when it comes to preventing electrical fires. These are actually common occurrence worldwide, leading to significant property damage, injuries, and even fatalities. Now, the smoke detector can sense smoke typically as an indicator of fire. So as long as all of this are properly validated. For the smoke detectors, we have a smoke detectors which is wireless. We have like a 10-year battery for this, and we also have or 25-year battery, and we also have those smoke detectors that are wired. And there are two types of detectors. One is the one that detects smoke, and the other is the carbon monoxide detector. This one detects gas, and they are usually placed on the kitchen, your living room, or
Okay.
the hallway. Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Okay, so George, I'm just curious, since we talk about fire safety and the fire panels, so is it really required that in a, like, for example, is it like in the building only that it's required for a fire panel or fire extinguisher is placed, or is it also required in single family homes?
Yeah, they're required on both, actually. Aside from this is a mandatory coming from San Francisco Fire Department. If we
Mhm.
are going to neglect this and not issuing a certificate, it's possible that we might get a notice of violation coming from the San Francisco Fire Department. We will end up with a hearing, and worse
Mhm.
is it's possible that the building may be shut down because this particular materials are not up to date, which is a safety
Mhm.
hazard and it would endanger lives.
Okay, and just to confirm with what you mentioned earlier, George, so this is checked annually, is it correct?
For the fire extinguishers, the fire panels, the boiler, and the backflow testing, yes, we can do that annually. For the smoke detectors, since they do have a lifespan, we do have a 10-year battery, a 25-year battery, and we do have smoke detectors that are wired. But here, our company, KeyOpp, actually, we do always a semi-annual inspection in
Mhm.
where we are expecting that this are still working and or in good working condition.
Okay, all right, thank you, George, for that. Appreciate the information that you've shared, especially that we are really gearing to making sure that everyone is safe. So now, going back to the legal responsibilities or duties of the landlords, what are the other things that a landlord needs to know?
Yeah, of course, aside from the compliance, landlord also needs to make sure the safeguard safety against health hazards. Uh, we are expected to address any health hazards such as mold, asbestos, lead-based paint, or pests that could negatively affect the tenant's health. Uh, and aside from this, a timely response to do the repair request. We should need to provide a reasonable time frame depending on the urgency and the severity of the issue.
Mhm.
And well, failure to do so may actually result to legal consequences.
Okay, thank you for that, George. Now, we've tackled the importance of timely response, right? So, can you share with us more details, like how really important it is that we provide a timely response to any maintenance request?
Oh, it is very important. First of all, timely response can save you time and
Mhm.
money, and will of course result to a satisfied resident of an owner, or even us. Actually, we're going to be satisfied if we are able to resolve the issue right away. Just to give you a little bit of story on what we have encountered before. There was this one task in where we are having a hard time on getting a vendor. But fortunately, we were able to get one, and the only thing left is an approval coming from the owner. We are having a hard time getting in touch with the owner, and when they got the information, they were not happy about the code that was provided to us. So we end up getting another vendor for this, which is of course delaying the process even more. And since the situation is very high risk, uh, this actually resulted to tenants' frustration. And just to make the long story short, actually, we end up paying more than the first cost. We end up
Mhm.
paying more than the code that was provided by the first vendor. And we did actually endure some complaints coming from the tenants and end up in a hearing.
Got it. All right. Thank you, George. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, George, for sharing the story that you had with specifically in maintenance. So thank you so much for sharing that information. Now I'd like to go into our fourth presenter for today, Nathan. seasoned realtor and leasing manager. So, Nathan, for you, um, if I was a landlord and I think I would prefer to try to rent my property on my own first, basically, I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that I may face in the process?
Yeah, great question, Carlene. So I think the appeal in trying to rent the property by yourself, the first time especially, is that people are big on cost
Mm,
savings, right?
right. Mm,
There's leasing fees and marketing fees that can be involved, and I think a lot of people, they think that's going to be very costly in order to hire
mm,
someone to rent the property out for them. But a majority of the reason is going to be the cost savings. Some of the landlords, they want direct control of their property, which is, it's wonderful. But in terms of this, it's more kind of like they want to be able to control every single tenant that, comes in, and then
mm,
they want exactly the type of person to live in their property. And
mm,
I think, another viewpoint in this is that when you're trying to rent your property out for the first time, uh, on a high level, it is kind of like a simple task, right? I
mm,
think you have to do is just, come up with a rent price, um, take some pictures, put it on the
right.
market, and then there you go, you have a tenant. But in fact, the process is very strung out. It's a very highly detailed
Mm,
process. And that's why we have, a dedicated leasing team in order to lease up properties for all of our owners. So the challenges, I think, when you're, trying to rent the property for the first time that you might face while going through it is that the biggest thing, right, is just the time and effort. And then our
true.
seasoned landlords, they know this, right? Landlords that have rented their property for the first time, and some of our clients are like this too. They're like, never again. Let's have someone else do this for us, right? Someone professional, right? And the biggest thing with time and effort is that you're gonna run across a lot of people that, they give you calls to kind of
Mm,
almost 24/7.
yeah,
Sometimes I have leasing calls super
true.
late at night when I'm like, watching Game of Thrones or something, right?
True.
Online, but you get a bunch of text messages and calls all day, people trying to schedule tours.
Mm,
You have to coordinate, what your available time is
mm,
and coordinate a time to show up at the property, do a bunch of tours. And then you find that there's a lot of people that will waste your time, right? People that are
mm,
not
true.
qualified, they lie about their qualifications, or
Mm,
people that
true.
are not super serious about renting the property.
Agreed.
Um, Other things too that, the challenges that you can run across is legal compliance as well. And property management is all about legal compliance. And
Mm,
on the leasing side, you just have to be aware of fair housing, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of legally savvy tenants and applicants that are out on the market, and they know their tenant rights. San
mm,
Francisco is known for being tenant favored. So there's going to be a lot of people there that know their tenant rights, and they will wait for you to trip up by, by violating fair housing rules with discrimination or preferential treatment. So just be aware of that when you are, trying to rent your property out for the first
mm,
time. Um, and another thing too is that there's a lot, when let's say you have like a tenant that moves out and
mm,
they've been there for a few years, the place is messy, there's a lot of like renovations that you have to do. uh, you have to coordinate with a bunch of vendors, and especially if you don't have your own, selection of vendors and professionals to help you do painting, replace or do cleaning, sorry, and then do some certain renovations like kitchen or appliances, stuff like that. Then
mm,
it's gonna be very hard to coordinate all those things together. You have to do a lot of research, and you
right.
have to find trusted professionals in order to
True.
handle the turnkey process of your home. Um, and then this gets more into the property management side, but like maintenance requests.
True.
You once you move in a tenant, you're gonna have a lot of times they're gonna be calling you late at night because their stove doesn't work, right? Or something that is considered urgent but is actually non-urgent. So there's a lot of challenges that I think you'll come across while you're trying to rent your property for sure.
Got it. And I couldn't agree more with you, Nathan. If I would do this, there's just a lot of process to take into consideration. So I really haven't gone through the process yet. So I'm sure that I'm aware of the scale of the task that involves basically leasing my property. So let's say if I move forward with trying to rent my unit on my own, what are some tips that you can provide to more effectively market my property?
Hey, Carlene, can you repeat the question? I think Nathan froze for a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And Nathan,
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I think my internet cut out. That was like the
all right.
worst thing that happened for in the middle of a webinar, but it's okay. I'm using my hotspot, so it should be fine. So sorry, could
Okay,
you repeat the question?
sure, absolutely, absolutely. So basically my question was, let's say if I move forward with me trying to rent my own property, like on my own, right? So what are some of the tips that you can provide to more effectively market my property?
Awesome. Yeah, so for to market your property, for sure, you have to focus on having a robust marketing campaign
Mm-hmm.
because once you put your property on the market, you want to generate, a buzz for the property and interest, right? Where you can
Right,
have a bunch of people that want to, rent your property. And then that way you have more options and then you have selection of people that you can choose. But for sure, you want to be transparent as possible with your marketing in order to avoid, confusion, any
right,
misrepresentation, and then just lastly, just wasting time. Because a lot of times when you are, when you're showing a property and then let's say the tenant doesn't realize there's certain things like utilities, right? Because you didn't list that on your listing and they didn't realize they're responsible for all utilities and they're like, actually, we don't want to do this, or they didn't realize parking's not included, right? And
right.
it's additional costs, stuff like that. So they're at your property and then you're telling them all of these things and they decide in the moment that it's not going to work out for them because it's a deal breaker. So wastes your time and their time as well. So that's why we want to be transparent with the listing description as much as possible. So that way you also minimize the number of calls and inquiries that you have to answer. And I guarantee you, it's like 90% of the inquiries that we had prior. Right now, we have a very streamlined leasing process, but like, when I started, a lot of the questions were people that didn't read the listing description, right? And I always like to refer back to the listing description because we have all the information on there. But still,
Right.
it saved me so much time in, answering phone calls and then text messages as well by having a very transparent listing description.
Got
Another
it.
thing too is that you want to, invest in your like the marketing material. So like the photos, right? And I'm not going to name any names, but while I'm doing market analysis, there are a lot of landlords that I I don't know. It's like I feel like when I'm taking a look at the photos, I'm like, did someone take the photos with the potato or something? Like it's 240 pixels, and there's a darkened corner of a room that you can't even tell which room it is, right? So definitely avoid doing that and invest in having professional photos taken or, like iPhones nowadays, they're great. They have wide angle, and you can take really clear and crisp photos of your unit. You always want to do two pictures of each room, and that
Mm,
way, basically, kind of like what you want to do is you want the leads to visualize the entire unit, right? So that way they get a clear understanding of what the layout looks like, what the property looks like. So in the off case that they have the layout doesn't work for them, then they can determine that before they waste your time at the showing. You also want to make sure that all the blinds are open, super nice bright lighting. Something that we include as well is that we include like the outside building, right? It's kind of like
mhm,
analogy of like when you're buying a car. right? You have you want to be able to not only look at the inside of the car, but on the exterior as well, right? Same thing with when you're doing listing photos. So you want to capture that, and then any amenities of the property. And then another thing too is like an added plus is like the neighborhood, right? What are some of the highlights of the neighborhood? Like, are there parks nearby? You know, shops, grocery stores, stuff like that. To get people excited about renting your place, and you want to portray that lifestyle. What we do is we have like a virtual 3D tour, so people might know like Matterport, right? Which is
Mm.
it's overkill if you're not, you know, a property management company. But um, you know, it's just that we take the marketing part very seriously because we understand that there is some leverage in trying to create buzz around the properties when we you know, when we market it for the first time. Um, yeah, so that I think that's pretty much it for, you know, just the marketing aspect of it.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And I'm just curious, you mentioned earlier that you can use iPhones, right? Is Android okay too? So we will not focus, we will
Green
have like
checks.
comparison, right? Apple, iPhone, and then smart Androids, right? Okay, just kidding, just
Yeah,
kidding.
I guess it works too, but it's just you might get a little pushback if you text leads and prospective tenants and the green bubble pops up. So might have to consider that as
Right,
well.
okay.
Sounds
All
like
right.
Nathan doesn't like green. I think he only likes blue.
Yeah, good thing our company logo is blue.
All right. Thank you so much for that, for explaining that marketing side of the business, Nathan. So I appreciate your time. Now,
Yeah.
our last but not the least speaker for the day, Anna, our development manager. All right. So, Anna, for you, let me just okay. So, Anna, my question is, what makes KeyOpp different from other property management companies in the Bay Area?
Thank you so much, Carlene. Well, I want to start off saying thank you so much to all of our panelists for their insightfulness, and that is what makes us different. Um, for spending the time doing research, always continue learning and educating our community. So we pride ourselves on several key factors that set us apart. Um, One is definitely excellent experience. Providing exceptional services isn't just our goal, but it's our standard. For prompt communications, proactive maintenance, like how George was talking about, you know, making sure that we're in maintenance compliance, from Kristine being super knowledgeable about the day-to-day operations and making sure that our landlords are being compliant. And you know, and look at Nathan, even though he doesn't like green bubbles. But he you know, every step in every department, we strive to be the best. Um, Definitely we go above and beyond. And as if you guys notice in the beginning of our screens, you will see some highlights of some reviews that we have received from our clients, not just our landlords, but residents, vendors, everyone that we come in contact with. But we do firmly believe in excellent customer service, going above and beyond.
Okay.
And then, you know, of course, we always want to build a relationship. We don't want our client to feel like they're just a number. And that's what I truly believe what sets us a difference as well. Some of the major property management out there, if you're a landlord with a single family home, you might be treated as just a number in the system. They might not know what your personal life is, but we take the time to not only to understand your needs, your goals in life, but we truly care. And we put that aspect for not only our landlords, but our residents as well. And as a homeowner myself, as a landlord myself, I always tell my client that we treat their property as if it was our own. So maintenance operations totally understand this. They they if they get a bill that is questionable, they better ask the vendor what is going on. Why are we charging this? Because we built great relationship with our vendors. We work with them for numerous of years. And
Right.
so that we set the standard to having a great pricing, great understanding, and we're very knowledgeable at the same time. So we treat our home as if it was our own. And that's what we do here at KeyOpp. So I think to wrap it up, um, I really believe that our mission statement here at KeyOpp states it best: improving life through key opportunities in real estate. So we are a full circle.
All right. Listening to Anna, it seems that KeyOpp is family oriented somehow, that you are taking care of each other, not just basically as a company, but you're also making sure that other people, like for example, like what you said earlier, you've been working with the vendors for numerous years, right? Numerous, that is, you know, that is already building a relationship, and you can just joke with them around, like, hey, there's a maintenance that I need you to do like right now, immediately. So they can do it because you already have like a relationship already, right? So thank you so
Yeah.
much for that, Anna. I really appreciate your time, and I'd like to extend my I'd like to commend all of the speakers for today for sharing your knowledge, your expertise towards our community. I know that people right now are really excited to know more about KeyOpp. And do we have questions? I believe that Lawrence already has questions being answered. Or Lawrence, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I just want to, obviously I want to thank everybody for joining, but I do want to address questions I answered in the chat
Mhm.
and also clarify one thing from earlier. So the required notice to move out is actually a state law. Minimum notice is, I believe, 30 days for California. The reason why Kristine said 60 days is because we're not only a property management company, but we're also an investment company. And for us, we're always thinking about what's best for the landlord. And one of the things that factors into your income statement is expenses. And one of the expenses that you have is vacancy rate. So the longer a property stays vacant, the more of a operating expense you have, or opportunity cost in terms of no rental income, as Carlene mentioned earlier as well. So what we do is we actually, in all of our leases, require a 60-day notice. This is not standard. This is only something that we do within our company.
Mm,
And that pairs up with what Nathan does on his side in terms of the marketing, in that with the marketing that we have, i.e. virtual tours, professional photography, the floor plans, we're able to, as soon as somebody lets us know that they're going to move out, immediately begin marketing so that hopefully, ideally, and we've seen it based on experience from Nathan, he's able to compress that vacancy rate down to almost zero. Like we've had people that have moved out and then the new person moves in like 1 or 2 days later, right? It's not always going to be the case, but as long as we can compress it as much as possible, that means more money in your pocket at the end of the day. There were two questions that came up in the chat, and I want to just address them really quick, make sure everybody saw them. One was about mold, and the question was, what if a tenant has allowed mold to grow and never cleans the unit? Who is responsible and what measures need to be taken? Thank you. Now, mold is tricky, right? And I provided an answer in there, and you can read through it, but at the end of the day, you have to protect yourself. And given that California and San Francisco especially is so litigious, if you truly believe that it's because the resident hasn't done what they should be doing, which is their responsibility, with most lease agreements, it says a resident should maintain the premises in a good order, right? Clean, and they shouldn't let it fall into disrepair. A mold can be that case, especially in bathrooms, right? And so the best thing to do to protect you is immediately, once the tenant raises it as a complaint, or once you know about it, get somebody in there like a mold expert, have them do their inspection, and have them generate a report that says, hey, this is a resident's responsibility because they aren't turning on the fan, they're not opening up the window, they're taking hot showers, and they're just letting the condensation sit. what should happen is residents should, as their responsibility, wipe down the walls, soak up all the moisture to prevent the mold growth. That is their responsibility. But if instead the mold is due to water intrusion from the exterior or water leak inside the property, then that is the landlord's responsibility. Another guest asked about backflow devices and testing that George brought up. It is something that's common. Not all properties in San Francisco have it. I think the building code requirements for backflow prevention devices came much later. And so newer properties tend to have it, or larger properties. And so you don't have it in a lot of properties. If you do have it, and if it's registered with the city, you will get a notice. And the notice for performing the backflow prevention testing is sent to wherever your water bill is sent. That's how they notify you. Now, that's one thing to note, is that a lot of times when there's compliance or regulatory requirements, a lot of those notices get sent to wherever the property tax bill goes. So for example, if you have like healthy vector control, healthy housing vector control, which is essentially they do inspection to check for any infestations, rats, mice, pests, and things like that. And that is something that usually gets sent to where the property tax bill goes. Similarly, boiler inspections, that get sent to where the water bill goes, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're wondering about any possible regulations that you might not have thought about or might be coming down the pipeline, you should get a notice through your mail to wherever your property tax bill is sent or to wherever your water bill is sent. Above and beyond that, the best thing to do is ask the local property manager. They're experts and they can tell you what you need to be in compliance with. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Lawrence, for addressing those questions. Now I understand that we've gone over 3 minutes from our time. So I'd like to take this opportunity to again thank our speakers for the day, for their contribution, for the time that they have allocated for today. Now, as we wrap up this valuable landlord seminar, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to each of you for your active involvement and insightful contributions. Your dedication to advance your skills as landlords is truly commendable. So should you have any questions or wish to delve deeper into how property management can simplify your landlord responsibilities, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're committed to ensuring your success in every aspect of property ownership. Once again, thank you for being part of this enriching experience, and we look forward to assisting you in unlocking the full potential of your real estate investments. So here's to your continued success as landlord and property owner. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.